Hello, my creeplings. I'm back. I'm not sick anymore. Well, I have some lingering effects. You may hear some coughing and some sneezing or some snuffling throughout the video, but I can talk again. So let's get down to it. I've missed you. I've missed doing this, and I'm coming back with a really good one. We're watching Reanimator. Reanimator was released in 1985. It is yet another horror comedy. I have a type. Directed by Stuart Gordon and starring Jeffrey Combs, second time on this list, Bruce Abbott, and Barbara Crampton. This one's bloody. It's funny. And it's based on an very loosely based on an H.P. Lovecraft short story. So if you like the whole Lovecraftian thing, this is a good, or you're interested in it, this is a good one to kind of whet your appetite, bite your teeth on. Of course, they had taken the setting from the late 20s, early 30s, which is when Lovecraft was really setting his stuff, because that was contemporary for him, and brought it up to the 80s. Okay, so Jeffrey Combs plays Dr. Herbert West, my favorite mad scientist ever. Bruce Abbott plays the man who eventually ends up in partnership with him, Dan Kane. You have Barbara Crampton, one of the best screamers in the business, playing Megan Halsey, Dan's fiance, girlfriend. She's also the daughter of the medical school dean, who is played by Robert Sampson. I'm not very familiar with him, nor am I very familiar with David Gale, the man who plays Dr. Carl Hill, who is our antagonist at this point. We start off right in the middle of the action. University in Zurich. Staff are trying to get in to figure out why Professor Hans Gruber, yes, same name as the guy in Die Hard, different character though, why he's screaming and yelling. And you manage to get the door open, and his head is contorting and getting all weird, and then it explodes. And you've got nerdy little Herbert West there. It's like, no, he was dead. I gave him life. Herbert West's one focus in life for his career, I think the reason he probably became a medical student, was to resurrect the dead, to conquer death. He's very passionate, very driven, very one-minded, and one would say borderline insane. And Jeffrey Combs plays this to a T. This is the movie he is known for. He's done a lot of stuff since then, but this was his first lead, and he is known for Dr. Herbert West. Yeah, I'm waiting to finally get a chance to meet him. There might be a chance in March. He's at a horror convention near me. It all just depends on whether or not my husband is able to be up and around, and we can get the time off of work and all of that. This year, maybe, I doubt it, but fingers crossed for me, guys. Fingers crossed for me. Barbara Crampton will be there as well. So we cut from the University of Zurich to modern day, I want to say Arkham, Massachusetts. And yes, Arkham is a city, town name that shows up in the Lovecraftian universe a lot. That's where Batman got the name DC for the asylum. So Arkham, Massachusetts, at Miskatonic University. This is also a very Lovecraftian horror name that shows up a lot. So if you've seen anything else based on Lovecraft, Arkham and Miskatonic are two names that show up quite a bit. We go to modern day, current time, where we're following Dan Kane around. He's attempting to revive a patient who's died on the table, refuses to give up until it's absolutely necessary, and it kind of hits him hard. You find out he spends shifts in the morgue. I'm gonna make a side note here. The security guard in the morgue, he's fucking hilarious. He's a trip. I'm just gonna say that much. You find out Dan is dating Meg, the daughter of the dean. Her dad probably doesn't approve. He doesn't know too much about how serious their relationship really is. And you also find out that Dr. Carl Hill is basically their grant machine. He's their lead. He's one of their lead teachers on the human brain. He's one of their lead surgeons, and he's also basically patenting laser drill at the moment. That'll make brain surgery much easier. He's basically bringing money in by being so fabulous. We cut to Dan and Megan studying. It's an interesting cut too, because they cut from them in the hallway of the hospital playing kissy face. She's like, oh no, and then we cut to them doing what couples do while she's screaming yes, yes, yes. It's a good cut. I like this cut. They finish what they're doing, and as she's trying to leave, she opens the door, and Herbert West is sitting here. Now, Dr. West, I don't know if he's actually a doctor at this point, but I'm going to continue calling him Dr. West. Dr. West and Dan had met previously, and they had also met, or Dr. West had also met Dr. Hill. There's a lot going on in this movie. Herbert West shows up to rent a room from Dan, and he's like, I see the basement. I have room for my lab. Here we go. Going on. And Dan's like, okay, yeah, sure. And Megan's like, I don't know. You guys should talk about this more. Dan takes the first month's rent, and everything seems to be okay. We get to a point where Megan's creeped out by Herbert West and notices that the cat, Rufus, excuse me, that normally hates her, that's always bothering them when they're studying, isn't there. So they go and they're searching the house. She goes into Dr. West's room and finds the dead cat in the refrigerator. Just as Herbert West comes home, he's like, what are you doing in my room? There's a little bit of an argument. And he's like, no, I found the cat dead. He's suffocated. I put him in here so it wouldn't stink the place up, but I wanted to tell you and show you. Couldn't leave a note. There's a whole bunch going on there. So she leaves. And this is where Herbert West drops what he's been studying on Dan. Reagent. Reagent brings the dead back to life. He claims he has conquered the 8 to 10 minutes after body death, where brain death happens. He claims he's conquered it. He proves it with the cat. This whole scene is just, oh my god. It's hilarious because the cat does come back to life and spazzes out, and they start attacking, and then he runs off, and then they kill it again. And Dan's like, no, I don't believe you. You drugged him, blah, blah. And Dr. West picks up the cat, lets it fall on the table, and it goes thunk. And he's like, you agree the cat's dead now, right? And he's like, yeah. They bring it back again. Dan freaks out a little bit, goes to tell Dean Halsey about it, and Dean Halsey's like, this was unauthorized. This is false. Your student loan's being rescinded. You'll have to go to school elsewhere, basically ruining their career and everything. Well, Dr. Hill's heard the whole thing. And the thing about Dr. Hill is, he's not as much on the up and up as you think. One, he's copied most of his research from Dr. Gruber from the beginning. And two, he's got this weird fixation on Megan. You find later he's got a folder in his office with photographs, napkins, even a hair clipping. Like, he's obsessively gross about it. Ugh. He's an old man compared to her. Just no. So to get to the next point in experimentation, Herbert convinces Dan to take him to the morgue so he can try it on fresh human bodies. Well, This is before all the word gets trickled down that Dan's not allowed to be in the morgue anymore, and all this, officialness. So Dan uses half a minute to sneak in. They sneak in a very clever way, I might add. And they do manage to reanimate a somewhat fresh body. And I'm going to warn you, there's a lot of nakedness in this movie, and it's mostly naked corpses up and running around. If you watch some of the behind the scenes, the director of photography was always like, I had so many problems. It's like, it's the weenies. I gotta hide the weenies. Because apparently these actors, these stunts, completely nude, covered in body paint. The lividity on these, though, oh my god, the effects guy, he really studied photos from autopsies and morgues, and he did his homework, and it shows. Well, they managed to reanimate this body at the same time that Dean Halsey has dragged Megan there to basically berate Dan because he figured out for some reason that Dan was there. And something about the reanimation process makes these, they're not really zombies. Ghouls? We'll just call them reanimated corpses. Makes these reanimated corpses like super duper ridiculously strong, and the reanimated corpse attacks Dean Halsey and of course kills him. Dr. West, one track mind, reanimates Dean Halsey, which then causes problems. Dr. Hill gets a hold of him because they don't think that he's been killed and reanimated. They just think something happened, and the story that Dan and Herbert tell basically is like, oh yeah, he went nuts. He went nuts and came down here yelling at Dan and threatened him and all this stuff. So Dr. Hill takes Dean Halsey, puts him in a rubber room, and tells Megan that he needs to do exploratory surgery. And she's like, do you really need to do that? He's like, I'm convinced it's neurological. And he gets a creepy moment with Meg. Ugh. We're talking creepy old man. Ugh. Dr. West is still working in the lab, and I think Dan's trying to reason with Megan later. When Dr. Hill leaves Megan, he goes and confronts West. He's like, oh no, I know what you're doing. And he basically is going to blackmail him so that he can say he discovered reagent and take credit for all that. Well, Dr. West ain't going to have it and kills him with a shovel. Chops his head off with the shovel. It's a really good kill, and apparently it's a hallmark of Stuart Gordon. He likes to do that in his films. Again, one track mind. Ooh, I haven't reanimated body parts yet. So he takes the head, puts it in a tray, jacks it full of reagent, jacks the body full of reagent. Here's where shit gets weird. The head revives and can talk, which is physiologically impossible because there's no lungs attached to it, and the larynx has probably been torn in half. But we're going to suspend disbelief because this movie gets crazy at this point. The body knocks Dr. West out, takes the head, and goes back to the university with all the notes, all but one stash of the reagent, and sends the body out to kidnap Meg. Dan discovers Dr. West, and they go to the hospital. Back up a little bit. The body doesn't kidnap Meg. Lobotomized, reanimated Dean Halsey kidnaps Meg and brings her to the hospital morgue, where Dr. Hill's head, apparently, this is a cut subplot, and there is a version called, I believe, the Ultimate version. Hold on a second. The integral cut, if you can find it. It's got some deleted scenes added back into it that talks about this subplot where he's a hypnotist and can hypnotize people to do his bidding, and this lobotomy technique he's been working on with this laser drill and the reagent and this hypnosis, he can control the bodies now. Like I said, the end of this is a cacophony of just weirdness that is just amazing. So yeah, Dr. West goes to confront him, and you find poor Meg stripped naked, tied down to a gurney, and let's just say the head was going to give a little head. It's gross. This is, God love Barbara Crampton, with not shying away from doing nude scenes. She's on almost complete full display, full disclosure here. Bravo for her for being comfortable enough in her body to do that. And it really does drive the point home in the story that Dr. Hill's a sicko. He is a just complete and total mental case. Just hid behind a thin veneer of propriety. So, Herbert West goes to confront Dr. Hill at the same time Dan is sneaking in to rescue Megan. This is where Dr. Hill reveals he can control all the reanimated bodies, and he has reanimated every one of those motherfuckers in the morgue. Here's where shit goes crazy. I mean, I've had to watch this three times, to be able to follow what happened. Corpses attack to try and destroy everyone. Dr. Hill is defeated by Dean Halsey's reanimated corpse because some of him remembers Meg, and to save her, he grabs the head and great effect. I mean, there's a lot of blood. There's a lot of naked, half decayed and fucked up bodies. I mean, we got heart attack victim, I think he said Meatball got hit by a truck. All kinds of interesting stuff going on. Dr. West has a theory on how to stop this by ODing them with reagent. We got a nice intestine attack because of this. By the end of it all, we have Dan and Meg have escaped the morgue. The morgue is up in flames because of all the chaos. We have no idea what's happened to Herbert West. One of the bodies, one of the reanimated corpses, manages to get to the elevator while they're there and starts choking Megan. They get up. She's pretty much dead. Dan's got Megan and Dr. West's notes and the last of the reagent. They can't revive Megan. It's just like at the beginning. Well, our last shot is Dan with a syringe of glowing bright green reagent, whispered, "I love you," turned her head, and the screen goes to black except for the syringe, and you can see the liquid go down. And then the last thing we hear is that lovely Barbara Crampton scream. This movie is a trip. There are 2 sequels, neither which I've seen yet. I've been trying to get a hold of them. I'm having some issues. I will get a hold of them and talk about them later. The effects are over the top bloody. If you can get the integral cut and watch any and all of the extras on any of the DVDs and Blu-rays, do so. The story of how this movie was made is just amazing. They wanted to sell it as a half-hour pilot. No, it was going to be a stage show first. Then they figured out that wasn't going to be easy to do. Then they tried to make it into a half-an-hour TV pilot. After watching this, I'm like, this never would have flown on TV in the 1980s. Oh, no! There it is. Sorry. This movie is a trip. Even the soundtrack kind of sounds a little Psycho-esque, and I think that was done on purpose, if I remember correctly. But at the same time, it's got its own sound, and it builds in just the right spot, gives you just so much of the creepy willies that you're like, this is weird. I remember the first time I watched this movie, I was surfing through the channels, and it was, I think, 3 a.m. on Sci-Fi. I caught the last half of this movie, and I'm like, I need to watch this again. And I did. I watched it like twice more in the year after that when I managed to find a copy of it. This was in the early days of DVD and the late days of VHS, so it was getting easier to find, but it wasn't as easy as I would have liked. Excuse me. But Jeffrey Combs gives a stellar performance as your straight up mad scientist with a one-track mind for his research. It is like a modern day telling of the Frankenstein myth with a major, like, this is what made Jeffrey Combs to me. I know the man's done a lot of other stuff. He's done voice work. He, did Ratchet on Transformers Prime, which was awesome in its own right. And he's done so many other things, which we will probably talk about at some point in the future. Barbara Crampton, she is also known for this, known for her screaming in this. She goes through all the emotions and she's believable. Bruce Abbott, oh my God, he had those movie star good looks. He looked like the hot doctor. The young medical school hunk that you just wanted to, survive and thrive. And dude, the guy who played Dr. Hill, he had that creepy old man shtick down to a science. I don't know if he ever did that afterwards. I know he got a divorce shortly after this film, and the rumor is it's part of what he played in this film was the tipping point for the wife. Again, this is just rumor. I don't know, but I feel for the man. The effects team, like I said, they did their research. I believe those were dead bodies in the morgue while they were laying there. And they weren't dummies. These were actual actors the entire time. Any shot of a dead body, from what I understand, was an actor laying on a slab. So, I highly suggest this one, especially if you like the zombie genre, mad scientist genre. If you're a Jeffrey Combs fan, if you haven't seen this yet, what's going on with this? This is the one that introduces most people to Jeffrey Combs. This is a good 80s horror movie. I can't say enough good things about it. I'm hoping that the sequels are just as good, although I know the third sequel was made for TV, so it's not going to be as crazy on the gore. But if I can, like I said, if I get a hold of them, I'll do them each individually and then maybe do an overview. If you like H.P. Lovecraft or are interested in H.P. Lovecraft type stories, try this out. But in the meantime, I'm going to go back to watching movies because I've got some catching up to do for you guys. Thank you for letting me take the break and not being too hard on me. I was having trouble breathing. I couldn't get through a 10-minute video without coughing. I tried this video 4 times before I gave up and did that update video the next day. I'm hoping I'm over it, and the best of it, or the worst of it is gone, and the best of my voice is going to come back soon. So what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to give you the 31 videos. They're not going to be in the order that I had originally thought, because there's certain videos I wanted to do on certain days. So I think if I upload this one, when I plan to, we'll go to the end of the first week of November. So we'll have Halloween on the 31st is Tuesday. We'll go to that Saturday. And then I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to work on some filming setup so that my background isn't boring and my lighting is better. And I might have a special guest because I'm coming back in Christmas with Christmas movies that people don't think are Christmas movies. Not necessarily horror genre, but they're not rom-coms and craziness like that. But I'll let you guys think about that. And in the meantime, good night, my creeplings. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.